Alright guys, let's talk about IV flow rate computations and every nursing student's favorite topic. So a few pointers. A lot of the times questions have a lot of numbers in them and you have to figure out which numbers you actually need in your formula. So the first thing you have to do is eliminate those distractors. And I'll show you a few examples when we do a few practice problems. But basically these are the things you need to find. Primarily the volume. Usually in mLs, they'll give you like, for example, oh, the patient needs 1,000 mLs of this. You're going to need to find the time. It's usually in hours. They're going to say you need to infuse it in 12 hours, or sometimes they might say you need to infuse this within 30 minutes. And the last thing you need to find, if the question asks this, is the drop factor. So let's get into the first question here. You guys can go ahead and pause it, and we will solve it together. So first things first, there aren't any distractors in this question, luckily. This question is pretty easy. So all we really need here is the volume, right here, 500 mLs, and the time, which is 2 hours. So all we're simply going to do is divide 500 by 2, because we want to find out how much do we have to infuse every hour. So the math is pretty easy. All we have to do is divide 500 by 2, and the answer is 250 mLs per hour. So we're going to be infusing that much amount in our patients every hour. So next question, same thing guys, go ahead and pause and we will solve it. So the doctor has ordered 600 mLs. This is what we want right here. Remember our volume. We're looking for volume. Now this 5% dextrose might throw you off. You don't need this at all. This is one of those distractors I was talking about in the beginning. This is just there to kind of confuse you a little bit, but don't worry about that. We're looking for volume and we're looking for time. Now this question does not have drop factors, so these two are all we need. So we're going to have 608 hours, so you're going to divide 600 by 8. So 600 divided by 8 equals 75 mLs per hour that you're going to be infusing every single hour. So this is actually the formula you need to solve these computations. Now, the last two problems we had were given in hours, so we didn't have to take this extra step to turn the time into minutes and times it by 60. Because if you have it by hours, you can just divide the volume by hours. Now, if the time itself was actually less than an hour, let's say 30 minutes, then that's the time you would do, for example, 600 over 30 minutes times 60, and that would give you the IV flow rate. But for the most part, most questions are usually in hours. But just remember, key pointer, if it's not in hours, you're going to have to put it in minutes and multiply it by 60. Alright guys, next question. Go ahead and pause. Now this one is a little bit tricky. We got a lot more numbers here, but remember, eliminate the distractors. So what we want is the volume, the time, and this question has a drop factors, so that's what we want. We want that 15. This 0.9 NaCl is the distractor, so go ahead and throw that out. So to solve this, we're going to have our 1000 mLs over 8 hours, but we're going to have to compute it into minutes because this is how you solve the drop factor type computations. This isn't unlike the first two questions we did. This one's a little bit different. You have to remember to put it into minutes. So it's going to be 1000 over 480, and that equals 2.083333. Now that's just this step right here. That's pretty much all we did. Now we still have to multiply the drop factor. So we still have one more step. If you remember, the drop factor was 15. So we're going to go ahead and multiply that 2.08333 times 15. And our answer, what you're going to get is 31.25, but you just round that down to the nearest whole number, which is 31. If it was something like 31.75, then you would go up to 32. So last question here, guys. Go ahead and pause this one and we will solve it. So this question actually had two distractors if you caught the 50 milligrams and the 0.9 NaCl. This we don't need. We need the volume, we need the time, and we need the drop factor right here. So these three numbers, 100, 20, and 10. So again, this is the formula and this is how we're going to set it up. we're going to put our volume over our time. Now, the difference between this question and last question is that we were given the time here in minutes already, so we didn't have to compute it because last question, if you remember, we had to multiply that 8 hours times 60. But since we already had this in minutes, so you can just put it as is. So 100 divided by 20 equals 5. Now that's this step. We still have to multiply times the drop factor. The drop factor was 10, so all we have to do is 5 times 10. So 5 times 10 equals 50 drops per minute. So just remember, guys, 4 steps pretty much to solving any IV computation. Number 1, eliminate the distractors because those can confuse you, especially if the question is long like an essay format, which they usually are. They're going to throw in a lot of tricky numbers there. So all you have to find is the volume, the time, and if it includes it, the drop factor. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it. Good luck on your exams and take care.